We live in a culture obsessed with speed. Everywhere you look, there's a promise of faster results, easier paths, and secret formulas. Learn a language in 7 days. Make 6 figures in 30 days. Get fit in 10 minutes a day. We're constantly bombarded with the idea that there's a way to skip the grind, skip the sweat, skip the time. And because we're human, we're tempted to believe it. Why? Because shortcuts are seductive. They whisper to us that maybe, just maybe, we can outsmart the process. That we can bypass the struggle that others had to endure. That there's a key no one else knows about, and if we could just find it, everything would click into place instantly. But here's the truth that most people don't want to hear. The real shortcut is doing the work. And I don't mean doing it when you feel like it, or when it's convenient, or when you're in the mood. I mean doing it consistently when no one's watching, when there's no applause, when it feels like nothing is happening. Every person you admire, every overnight success you've ever seen got there because they put in more days than anyone noticed. From the outside, their success looks like a single leap, but from the inside, it was a staircase, built one step at a time over years, sometimes decades. We all want the results without the process, but the process is the part that changes you. Think about it. If there really were a magic shortcut, it would rob you of the lessons, the resilience, the skills, and the confidence that come only from showing up every day. The process isn't a punishment, it's the preparation. There's the story I love about a young musician who asked an older world-class pianist, "How do I get to where you are?" The pianist looked at him and said, "Practice." The young man laughed. "No, I mean really, what's the secret?" The pianist replied, "That is the secret." We laugh because it sounds too simple, but it's not. It's the kind of answer that's hard to accept because it means the responsibility is fully on us. And that's the thing. Most of us don't actually want a shortcut. We want an escape from responsibility. We want to skip the uncertainty, the mistakes, the moments where we doubt ourselves. We want to feel safe before we start. But safety doesn't exist at the beginning. Safety is built through action. If you look at history, the greatest innovators, leaders, and creators weren't people who stumbled on a hidden hack. They were people who put in relentless effort long after the excitement faded. They weren't faster because they found a loophole. They were faster because they didn't waste time looking for one. The dangerous thing about searching for shortcuts is that it delays the very thing that would get you where you want to go, the work. People will spend years reading about productivity instead of being productive. They'll buy every new course, app, or system hoping that this one will be the breakthrough, yet they never actually commit to applying what they learn. It's like standing at the edge of a swimming pool, reading book after book on swimming technique, waiting for the perfect moment to jump in. Meanwhile, the people who just dove in, awkward strokes, bad form gasping for breath, are already halfway across the pool. By the time you've prepared enough to feel ready, they've lapped you 10 times. This is why doing the work is the shortcut. Not because it magically accelerates time, but because it removes the time you would have wasted searching for ways to avoid it. Every hour spent looking for an easier way is an hour you could have been getting better. Every day spent hesitating is a day someone else is stacking experience on top of yours. When you commit to the work, something powerful happens. You start to build momentum. And momentum is the closest thing to a real shortcut there is. At first it feels slow, even frustrating. You're pushing and pushing, and it seems like nothing's moving. But with each effort, each repetition, the resistance gets a little lighter. Then one day, you realize you're moving faster without even trying. But here's the kickers: you can't get to momentum without going through the slow part. That's why so many people quit before they see progress. They mistake the slow beginning for failure, when in reality, it's just the natural cost of entry. Think about planting a seed. You don't put it in the ground and expect a tree the next morning. You water it, you nurture it, you protect it from the elements. For weeks, sometimes months, nothing happens above the surface. And then one day, a tiny green sprout pushes through the soil. That sprout is your first visible result, but the real growth was happening underground the whole time. The work you're doing now, even if no one sees it, even if no one claps for it, is the root system of your future success. Skip the work and you skip the roots, and a tree without roots might grow quickly, but it will topple the moment the wind blows. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't learn from others or seek efficiency. By all means, learn from those who've gone before you. Avoid the mistakes that can be avoided, but never confuse learning from others with voiding the work. Advice is only valuable when it's acted upon. The real tragedy is that the search for shortcuts doesn't just waste time, it erodes confidence. Because deep down, you know you're avoiding the hard part. And every day you put it off, you reinforce the belief that maybe you're not capable. But here's the truth: you are capable. You just haven't given yourself the chance to prove it yet. And proving it doesn't come from reading one more book or watching one more tutorial. It comes from doing the thing imperfectly until you get better. That's the path. That's the shortcut. When you embrace the work, You stop needing to compare your journey to anyone else's. You stop obsessing over how fast someone else got there. You realize that speed is irrelevant if the destination is meaningless without the skills and the confidence you gain along the way. I've seen people transform their entire lives simply by deciding, I'm going to do the work no matter how long it takes. And the crazy thing, it almost always takes less time than they thought, because when you're no longer distracted by the hunt for an easier way, you can give your full attention to the actual thing that moves the needle. So maybe the question isn't, what's the shortcut? Maybe the better question is, what am I avoiding? Am I avoiding the discomfort of being a beginner? Am I avoiding the fear of failing publicly? Am I avoiding the discipline it takes to keep going when it's boring? If you can answer those questions honestly, you'll know exactly where to start. At the end of the day, there is no magic key, no hidden door, no fast lane that bypasses the road everyone else has to walk. There's just the work. And the people who look like they've found the shortcut, they just started walking sooner and they didn't stop. And if you want to catch up, the fastest way isn't to sprint, it's to start walking now and keep walking every single day. Because the work you do today compounds. The work you do tomorrow stacks on top of that. And before you know it, you've built something that not only gets you where you want to go, but makes you the kind of person who can stay there. The shortcut isn't out there waiting to be found. You're already standing on it. It's called the work. And the moment you start, you've already taken the fastest route possible. We live in a world that gets bored very quickly. We're wired to seek novelty, to chase the next new thing, to feel that rush of starting something exciting. But here's the hidden truth most people never want to admit. Mastery doesn't live in excitement. It lives in repetition. Repetition is not glamorous. It's not Instagram worthy. It's not the thing people post about to get applause. It's often boring, quiet, and invisible. And yet it's the single greatest lever for growth in any skill, craft, or pursuit. The reason repetition works is simple. The human brain is a pattern recognizing machine. Every time you repeat an action, whether it's swinging a golf club, delivering a sales pitch, playing an instrument, or writing code, you're literally wiring your brain to perform that task with more precision, more efficiency, and more confidence. At first it's awkward, at first you're clumsy, but the more you do it, the more it becomes automatic. And that automatic quality is what separates amateurs from professionals. The irony is that most people quit just before repetition starts to work. They start something, do it for a week, maybe a month, and when it still feels uncomfortable, they assume they're not good at it. They assume it's not for them. They don't realize that discomfort is the sign they're in the learning zone, the exact place where growth is happening. There's a saying that goes, repetition is the mother of skill, but I go further, it's also the mother of confidence, resilience, and trust. Because every time you repeat something, you're not just training your body or your mind, you're teaching yourself that you can show up, even when it's tedious, even when you're not in the mood. That trust in yourself is worth more than any talent you were born with. Think about a musician rehearsing for a concert. By the time they step on stage, they've played those songs hundreds, maybe thousands of times. The audience only hears it once, but the artist has lived inside those notes for months. They don't have to think about where their fingers go, their body knows. That's mastery, and it's built in the hours when no one is clapping. We often think mastery is about a breakthrough, a moment where suddenly everything clicks. And yes, there are moments like that, but those moments are not lightning strikes. They are the inevitable result of hundreds of hours of repetition, the way rain eventually fills a river. The breakthrough isn't magic, it's math. Repetition also reveals depth that shortcuts can't touch. The first time you do something, you're just trying to survive it. The second time, you notice a few things you could improve. The 10th time, you see patterns emerging. The 100th time, you can play with it, experiment, and add your own style. Mastery isn't just about being able to do something. It's about being able to do it well under any circumstance. And that comes only from doing it so many times that it becomes part of you. But here's the problem. Repetition is hard to stick within the early stages because the results are invisible. You don't notice how much better you've gotten until one day someone else points it out. They see the improvement long before you do. And that's where most people give up. They can't see the compounding effect of their effort. So they assume it's not working. I once heard a story about a potter who taught two groups of students. To the first group, he said, your grade will depend on how perfect your single best pot is. To the second group, he said, your grade will depend on how many pots you make. At the end of the term, the group that made the most pots also made the best pots. Why? Because while the first group obsessed over perfection and only practiced a little, the second group learned through repetition. Every pot was an experiment, a refinement, an improvement over the last. By the end, their skills had skyrocketed without them even realizing it. Repetition works the same way in life. The more you do something, the less energy you waste thinking about it, and the more you can focus on refining it. Your brain shifts from conscious effort to unconscious competence. And that shift is where real speed, precision, and creativity emerge. The most powerful thing about repetition is that it builds identity. At first, you're someone trying to do a thing. After enough repetitions, you become someone who does that thing. You're not just learning to run, you become a runner. You're not just learning to write, you become a writer. The action repeated enough reshapes how you see yourself. And once your identity shifts, consistency becomes easier because you're no longer forcing yourself to show up. You're simply being who you are. That's why the early grind is so critical. It's not just building skill, it's building the self-image that will carry you forward when motivation fades. Of course, repetition comes with a challenge: boredom. The human brain craves novelty, and repetition seems to kill it. But boredom isn't a sign that something's wrong, it's a sign that you're moving into mastery. Once the basics are automatic, you have the freedom to push boundaries, to innovate, to explore the edges of your skill. In fact, some of the most creative breakthroughs happen after the boredom stage, because that's when your brain starts looking for new ways to make the familiar more interesting. Repetition is also the great equalizer. You don't have to be the smartest, the fastest, or the most naturally talented. If you're willing to out-repeat the competition, you will win. Because repetition compounds like interest. The longer you invest in it, the more exponential the returns. That's why a mediocre athlete who trains every day will eventually outperform a naturally gifted one who only practices when they feel like it. And here's the beauty of repetition: it doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't demand perfection. It just demands that you show up. Whether you're tired, uninspired, or frustrated, every repetition counts. Even the bad ones. Especially the bad ones. Because the bad reps teach you how to recover, how to adapt, and how to keep going when conditions aren't perfect. That's the kind of resilience that shortcuts can't give you. If you look at any master in any field, you'll see the same pattern. Thousands of hours, thousands of repetitions, often long before anyone noticed them. They didn't just get lucky. They built their luck brick by brick through relentless repetition. So the question isn't whether repetition works, it's whether you're willing to endure the part where it feels like it's not. The early grind, the invisible progress, the days where you wonder if it's worth it, that's the toll you pay for mastery. And the moment you stop expecting instant gratification and start embracing the long game, repetition becomes a gift instead of a chore. Because here's the secret: repetition doesn't just make you better at the thing, it makes the thing part of you. And once it's part of you, no one can take it away. You've built it into your muscle memory, your instincts, your identity. That's why repetition is freedom. Freedom to perform without fear. Freedom to adapt in the moment. Freedom to create without second-guessing yourself. And that's why, in the end, repetition isn't boring at all. It's the most exciting thing in the world. Because it's the quiet, consistent act of turning potential into reality. It's the daily choice to lay one more brick, take one more step, write one more page. And over time, those small acts compound into something extraordinary. You don't need to be the best today. You just need to be the person who's willing to keep showing up tomorrow. And the day after that. And the day after that. Because mastery isn't about being perfect once. It's about being consistent 1,000 times. And when you get there, when the thing you once struggled to do becomes effortless, when you can execute without even thinking, you'll realize something profound. The repetitions weren't just the path to mastery. They were the mastery. We all love the feeling of inspiration. That rush of energy that makes us feel unstoppable. That spark that convinces us we're about to change everything starting right now. Inspiration feels powerful, like we've already moved halfway toward our goal just by feeling it. But here's the problem with inspiration. It's unpredictable. It comes when it wants to, not when we need it. If you rely on inspiration to take action, you will wait longer than you can afford. Because inspiration is like the weather. You can't control it. Some mornings it's sunny and you feel alive and ready to go. Other mornings it's cloudy and the thought of doing anything feels exhausting. If your ability to act depends on those sunny days, you'll be stuck in the same place for years, wondering why nothing has changed. Discipline, on the other hand, doesn't care about the weather. Discipline doesn't ask if you're in the mood. It doesn't check your energy levels, your schedule, or your motivation. Discipline says, we do this because it's time to do it, and when you embrace that mindset, you move faster, not because every day is perfect, but because you've removed the decision-making process entirely. You don't wake up asking, do I feel like it? You wake up saying, it's what I do. Most people overestimate how much inspiration matters and underestimate how much discipline accelerates progress. Inspiration gets you started, but discipline gets you finished. Discipline is the quiet engine that moves you forward on the days when enthusiasm has disappeared. It's the part that nobody applauds because it's invisible. People will cheer when you hit the finish line, but they'll never see the mornings you dragged yourself out of bed, the evenings you stayed in to practice instead of going out, the dozens of times you worked on your craft when there was no audience and no reward. This is why people who rely on inspiration feel like they're always starting over. They wait for the next burst of excitement to push them into action, and when it fades, as it always does, they stop. Then they wait again. They're living in a cycle of start, stop, which feels exhausting because it is. Discipline, in contrast, skips that cycle. It builds momentum. And momentum is the closest thing to real speed you will ever have. The thing about discipline is that it often feels slow in the beginning. You don't see massive results right away. But what you do see is progress, small, consistent progress that compounds over time. That compounding effect is the magic, because while everyone else is taking breaks, waiting for motivation to return, you're stacking small wins on top of each other. Imagine two runners at the starting line of a year-long race. One runs whenever they feel like it. Whenever the sun's out, the playlist is perfect, and they're feeling pumped. The other runs every morning at 6 a.m., rain or shine. At first, they might seem neck and neck, but fast forward a few months, and the difference is massive. The disciplined runner is faster, stronger, and more resilient, not because they had more energy, but because they showed up more often. That's the compound interest of discipline. Another thing people misunderstand is that discipline isn't about punishing yourself or forcing yourself into misery. True discipline isn't about being rigid. It's about being committed. It's about saying, I've decided this is important, and I will treat it like it's important, no matter how I feel in the moment. The irony is that the more you practice discipline, the easier it becomes. At first, it feels like a fight against yourself. Over time, it feels natural. Eventually, it becomes part of your identity. And once it's part of your identity, you no longer have to wrestle with the choice. You don't negotiate with yourself about brushing your teeth. You just do it. You don't debate whether to show up for your job. You go. When your work, your training, your craft becomes part of that same category, progress becomes inevitable. People often say, I'm just waiting for the right time. But there is no right time. There are only two times now and too late. Discipline teaches you that starting before you feel ready is the only real option. And here's the thing. Once you start, your feelings often catch up. You may not feel motivated before you begin, but once you get into motion, something shifts. Action generates energy. And the days when you start with zero motivation but still show up, those are the days you build the most trust in yourself. The trust you build through discipline is priceless. When you know you can count on yourself to show up regardless of how you feel, you stop fearing the hard days. You stop worrying about whether you'll quit. You become reliable not just to others, but to yourself. And when you trust yourself, you take bigger risks, aim for bigger goals, and follow through on them. I've met so many people who think they need to find discipline as if it's some hidden treasure you discover. But discipline isn't found, it's built. It's built one choice at a time, in moments when it would be easier to take the day off, to delay, to rationalize. Every time you choose to show up, instead of making an excuse, you're laying another brick in the foundation of your discipline. And like any foundation, it doesn't look impressive while you're building it, but everything you want to build in life rests on it. The fascinating thing is that discipline eventually creates freedom. People think discipline is restrictive, that it cages you in routines and limits your options. But the opposite is true. The person without discipline is always at the mercy of their mood, their energy, their circumstances. The person with discipline is free to act regardless of those things. They don't have to wait for perfect conditions because they've learned how to move forward in imperfect ones. There's another hidden benefit of discipline. It removes decision fatigue. When you decide in advance that you're going to do something every day, you don't waste energy debating whether you should. That mental energy can be redirected into doing the work itself. It's a small shift that makes a massive difference over time. Discipline also changes your relationship with results. When you're disciplined, you stop obsessing over immediate outcomes. You start playing the long game. You stop asking, did it work yet? And start saying, it will work because I'm working. That mindset shift alone can keep you in the game long enough to win. I've seen incredibly talented people lose to less talented ones simply because the latter had more discipline. The disciplined person isn't necessarily more gifted. They just have more reps, more experience, more resilience. They've shown up on the days when the talented person stayed home. And over time, that gap in consistency turns into a gap in skill so wide it looks like talent. But it's not. It's the compound effect of discipline. Inspiration is a beautiful thing. It makes the journey feel lighter when it shows up. But it's a guest. It comes and goes. Discipline is the house you live in. It's the thing you can rely on, the place you return to every day, whether the sun is shining or the storm is raging. And the people who understand this move faster, not because they run harder, but because they never stop moving. If you want to get somewhere faster, Don't wait for inspiration to knock on your door. Start walking now. Keep walking the day after that. Inspiration will join you along the way, but even if it doesn't, you'll still arrive. Because the truth is, inspiration is unpredictable, but discipline is undefeated. And in the race between the two, discipline always wins, not because it's faster in the moment, but because it never stops moving forward. We spend so much of our lives trying to figure out the best path before we take the first step. We map out scenarios, run through what-ifs, and look for the clearest, safest route to where we want to go. But in our quest to avoid mistakes, we often end up stuck circling the starting point, convincing ourselves we're being smart when really we're just stalling. The irony is that the very thing we're trying to avoid, the mistakes, the wrong turns, the uncertainty, is exactly what we need, because the work doesn't just move you forward, it removes the detours you can't see yet. It teaches you faster than any amount of planning ever could. We think of detours as these long, frustrating delays, but here's the truth: the real detour is overthinking. The real detour is waiting for perfect clarity before acting. Every hour you spend trying to predict the future is an hour you could have spent creating it. Doing the work forces you into reality, and reality is the best teacher there is. You can't learn to ride a bike by reading about balance. You can't learn to cook by memorizing recipes. And you can't learn to lead, build, or create by imagining how it might go. You have to get in the kitchen on the bike, in the arena. That's where the lessons lie. I've met so many people who had brilliant plans that never left the page. They were so afraid of making a wrong move that they made no move at all. And here's the tragedy: they didn't just delay their success. They delayed the lessons that would have led them to success. The work doesn't just show you the right path, it eliminates the wrong ones faster than thinking ever will. When you start, you see possibilities. But when you do the work, you see reality. You realize some ideas that looked perfect in theory crumble in practice. You see strategies that sounded brilliant in your head fall apart in execution. And yes, it's humbling. Sometimes it's even embarrassing. But it's also the fastest way to clarity. Every failed attempt sharpens your instincts. Every wrong turn teaches you what signs to watch for next time. People forget that clarity is a byproduct of movement. You don't think your way into it, you work your way into it.